You know what time it is? It's mime time. I want to ask a bit more on your work. First off, like, what was it like working on the lake of Zhang? What was the name of that lake? Or the
Oh,
Chinese propaganda film?
Chosan in Korean, I might be pronouncing it wrong. In Chinese, it's Changjinghu, like
Changjing.
Lake Changjing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Have you heard? I'm just curious if you heard about, because it's a relatively pivotal event in the Korean War, because it's when China was first involved in the Korean War. And simple history that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with is that basically the UN and South Korea, they were winning the war, and they almost pushed the North Koreans out of the Korean Peninsula, and then China intervened, and basically it's like, heck
Yeah.
no, and then over 1 million soldiers from the People's Volunteer Army
Yeah.
invaded. Yeah.
Yeah. In the history books, more people are familiar with, like, not the lake, but the Yalu River, right?
Oh,
When
Yalu
the
River is a
yeah
huge thing too. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah. I mean, yeah. That's when what is it, like 1 million Chinese troops like entered the peninsula or something
Over a
like that?
million, and even Mao's son, Chairman Mao's son, was amongst them, and it's just crazy, sort of picturing like that many human bodies crossing at once. And it's kind of ironic because I actually did two Korean War movies, one in the US and one in China. So I fought the Korean War in
Whoa.
two different countries.
You
It's
fought,
what
so
I mean,
you were an actor? What was
I
your
was an
role in both?
actor for both, and I was working crew. So it's a unique position. So in the Chinese production of it, I was actually working as a translator, and I was supposed to act in it, but then it didn't get to my part, and the pandemic broke out. Then I came back here, and then obviously the pandemic broke out in the US as well, and then kind of paused everyone's careers for a while. And last year I
You're
was
a
in
double
Georgia
agent.
for. But
Sorry,
the
go
funny
ahead.
thing is, I played a Chinese soldier in Georgia and in China. So I stayed loyal to the PVA, the People's Volunteer Army. So, yeah, I don't know what you want me to talk about first, but yeah, it's wild that I got to kind of be a part of this story in both countries. And again, this is just a dream if I ever get there. And not to say that, of course, war is a fascinating topic in itself, not because like we like war and violence, but because I think war changes the course of people's journeys and histories and forces people to literally move or change their lives. But I hope there are more Korean War films, because it it was really a world event, because so many parties were involved, and the way that it changed kind of the political dynamic in East Asia, it can still be felt today. And you being in Seoul, you feel that legacy. And I don't say this proudly, but because of China, North Korea exists. If China didn't cross the Yalu River, if China didn't push the UN forces out of Chosan Reservoir, North Korea would just be united. It would just be one Korea. North So I apologize on behalf of China that North Korea exists because of the Chinese intervention. But I would say that it was such an honor being a part of these movies, because ultimately you're generally telling three important perspectives: the perspective of the UN, which is primarily represented by the United States; the Korean perspective, because you have all these refugees running around. Um, at the time, obviously, South Korea was actually weaker than North Korea at the beginning, very very beginning of the war, and so South Korea is sort of gathering itself, building up its military, trying to kind of get everything together, and then it represents the Chinese perspective. And obviously, China at that time had something to prove as well, because you know um, China, and this is taught in sort of their patriotic education. So I hope I'm not subconsciously impacted by that. But China sort of, for 200 years of modern contemporary history, China was sort of kicked around. They were kicked around by the European powers. They're kicked around by the Japanese. And then, so at the end of World War II, Mao said, "Whoa, all these Americans, Europeans, and South Koreans gathering on our border, we got to prove something to them." And so I think the Korean War is such a dynamic space to explore all those perspectives. And
That's a great point. There should be
yeah,
more Korean War films.
Yeah, no, I want there
Yeah.
to be. So not that again, like I said, it's such a devastating event. Millions of people died, and the Korean people suffered the most. But it because the Korean War has sort of established what again that situation and the identities of so many people to this day. And yeah, so obviously the Chinese film is just a generic propaganda film. Kind of a fun fact: recently in Chinese media, there's always like 1 to 2 Korean War films a year because it's the first one of the biggest wars where China and the U.S. directly fought each other. So it's great
Mm,
propaganda material for
right.
Chinese media and Chinese government. Oh my God, there's so many TV shows and like more than like 2 or 3 Korean War movies coming out in China specifically. And then, of course, I'm butchering the pronunciation, but I've seen Taegukji, like the Brotherhood of yeah,
Taegukgi, Brotherhood of War.
Taegukgi.
I was about to say it. Yeah.
Great movie, and I've seen a couple other Korean movies about the Korean War, and it's interesting because if I'm not, again, you might need to double check me, but I think the last time the U.S. there was like an American production of the Korean War was like during the 50s and 60s. So I worked on this movie called Devotion. It stars Jonathan Majors. You might know him as the timekeeper from Loki if you've seen it, and Joe Jonas from the Jonas Brothers. I was actually his COVID assistant, which is another
Wow.
story on top of acting. So I got to interact with Mr. Jonas for a bit. But yeah, I was really ecstatic that they were telling this story in the US, and based on what I know, I didn't have access to the full script, but it seems like it was a pretty balanced story, and that the American story is focusing on the relationship between this white pilot and this black pilot in the Air Force. It's sort of exploring themes of segregation while they're fighting the Korean War. And then I play a Chinese soldier. If they don't cut my scenes, hopefully you'll see me yelling on the battlefield and wielding my rifle. And it's just I know it sounds weird to say, but I was so happy and privileged and honored that they were willing to tell this story in the United States. And I hope that Hollywood producers see the potential in this kind of story because you have a chance to combine Asian storytelling with American storytelling, and then even within that box of Asian storytelling, you have the Chinese side, the North Korean side, and then the South Korean side. And that's why it's like if I ever become a successful producer, I really want to invest in those stories because I want to show how the regular Korean civilians suffered during that period, while the Americans at the UN wanted to prove a point to the communists, and then the communist China wanted to prove a point to the UN, and it's just I get perked up talking about it, and just having a small part in both big productions in the United States, Devotion, which is coming out this fall, and then the Battle of Lake Changjin, which is already out. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head where you could watch it unless you have access to Chinese streaming sites. But it was so cool being a part of it, despite the fact that it's a little of a violent propaganda-ish topic anyway.
You traitor, you fucking chink, you're working for a Chinese propaganda film. You're not American. Dude, I think that's
Exactly.
fucking awesome. I'm jealous like that you got to have that experience. Like that's really cool that you got to be part of that film. And like there's so many points that you said like I want to touch upon like yeah, like man, I hope I would love for you to blow up, bro, and then like have
Mhm.
these nuanced perspectives interwoven into these great stories because war and geopolitics, it's all it's not all one sided.
Mhm.
It's like there's so many factors at play, different perspectives, different motivations between nation states and individuals and families. Yeah, and so if we could we're in a place of privilege where we can tell a more nuanced story because we're not like the older generation who's just trying to run away from war and just put rice on the table, not bread on the table, rice on the table, right? And like
Mhm.
we have time to reflect about history and consider different perspectives, like that whole Chinese perspective, because China did get kicked around, and then when the Communist Party took over China, they were coming from a nationalist or like a a point of like let's show we can't have these Westerners or these other powers come. We have to show them that like I understand and I can respect that perspective, and also like that's something we don't hear. Obviously, growing up in America, you don't hear the North Korean or the Chinese side, fairly. So like I'm actually very I don't want to say sympathetic, but I understand and respect, like North Korean and Chinese narratives in the sense, like not obviously not that I would necessarily agree, but just to understand where they're coming from. I can understand, and yeah, there's some sympathy there, um, because like, and the funny thing is like, I'm like less than 10 minutes away. I'm like 5 minutes away from the National
Pretty.
War Museum, like the
Oh,
National
okay.
War Monument, like all the
Mhm.
like Korean history of like war boats and tanks and like for like all of Korea's like war history as there's like a whole monument to the UN. It's like really cool stuff there because like growing up, I like tanks and soldiers and war films and war video games and real time strategy. Command and
Mhm.
Conquer or whatever and Ages of Empires. So like there's all that great stuff over there. But then I know it's also like a one-sided story praising the UN, like, oh thank God the American soldiers came to save our asses. And and it's
Mhm.
also interesting, like there's a spectrum. It's like how do Korean individuals, older people, younger people feel about the war and the past? Are they great? Are Koreans grateful to America, or they actually and right surrounding this war monument is the whole Yongsan base garrison, which has been kind of like emptying out because they're planning to turn it into a giant park. But this was like the biggest U.S. military garrison in Korea, if not in Asia, for quite some time. Now it's all down in Pyeongtaek, which is a city south, where there's another U.S. installation there. That is the biggest installation, U.S. installation, military installation, I believe, in Asia, if not the world, but maybe Asia. Anyways, um, yeah, it's fascinating, and like I'm totally jealous that you got to play those parts. You got to play in America and you got to play in China. Like that is so cool, bro. Like
No, I
that's
can
really
recite
amazing.
some lines. I can recite my Chinese battle cry. I don't mind. It's so cool getting to play a communist soldier and sort of like getting my head in that space, and both creatively as an actor and like just so cool to be able to tell that story, help them tell that story. And then minor factor, my great granduncle served in the PVA as well. So of course, it was so personal to me that I got to be a part of that. And again, I think as you said very well too, that there's sympathies for both sides because it makes sense. What China did crossing the Yalu River like made complete sense. If I was China, I would expect the same thing. I wouldn't want a bunch of U.S. and South Korean troops on my border, and so that's and and again, I mean, and this is me just being a nerdy history major. I mean, the Korean War is known as the Forgotten War.
I
It's
was about to say,
overshadowed. It's overshadowed by the Vietnam War. It's overshadowed by all the World War II movies. I don't know if your average American understands why we were there, why the 38th parallel exists, and
it,
why
it,
it's such a big deal. Yeah.
it's like I mean, it really deserves its own podcast. Like it was World War III condensed into like at the heart of Korea on the Korean Peninsula, like which is like if right between China and Japan. So it's
Mhm.
like it was really like this, like I don't know how to call it, but it's like the eddies of a whirlpool. It's like all
Mhm.
these geopolitical powers, all their
Oh,
motivations and all their bullshit and
oh, yeah.
the struggle for power. It coalesced perfectly on this Korean peninsula. And here we are as, hapless Koreans always being, like overtaken by powers stronger than us. And from there comes our Han, which is not like Han as in Han Chinese or Hanguk, Han like Korean Han.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are different Sino-Korean characters, but Han as in the bitterness, the pain that comes
Mhm.
from being from like a millennia of intergenerational trauma, war, oppression, rape,
Mhm.
famine, all these terrible things that have happened to us that we did to each other, carried to our children, the sins of the father type shit. And so the Korean War is just like a perfectly terrible, evil, beautiful example of that. And really, you said everything I want to say. It's a forgotten war, but really it's so fascinating, like because there's so many players involved, and that have ramifications to this day. And obviously it was like with if it didn't happen I wouldn't be here in the sense, right? Because like I mean, right, if the war didn't happen, I mean, what if Korea could have just been an independent prosperous country from the get? But it brings me whenever I think about it, it's like the saddest thing. It really is like because like my dad was born during the war and like all the shit that he went through and all the shit other Korean people went through. And it's like, yeah, I could talk about it forever. And before I forget, Taegukgi, The Brotherhood of War. That is for me is my favorite war film, if not my favorite Korean film. And to be fair, I have not watched a lot of Korean films, but that is like my favorite Korean film slash war film because it really captures both. It doesn't make the North Koreans look bad. It makes the South Korean government look bad as well. And it's just like it's so like personal and relatable to every Korean. And it's just like it's such a powerful story. And it's so Korean, and it's like its direction and the way it evokes emotion to the audience. And so I would really encourage any Korean person or anyone who's into Korean film or war film to study it, because I think that is more emotionally intense and relatable as a Korean, as an Asian, than Saving Private Ryan. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, which I love Saving Private Ryan, but it's just so intense and nuanced, and like I cry every time I watch it. Yeah, the Taegeuk, the Brotherhood of War. They're um, it's really an amazing film.
It's
So
it's really powerful. I mean, as a non-Korean, it was very impactful for me. So I can only imagine as a Korean how much more impactful it is.
yeah, I mean, I really think everyone, because I grew up watching that in America, and I'm like, holy shit, and then I was just like this. Maybe I was like 13 or something, so that it was really intense. But
Mm.
man, I feel like we're. How are you doing on time?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy to talk as long as you want.
Yeah, there's so many things I want to talk to you about, but what's the deal with American born Chinese for our listeners? Like, what's going on here? How's the production going, and how is it working? What is your
Oh,
role
yeah.
in American born
Oh,
Chinese?
for sure. And I'm happy to talk about it. Funny thing is that, and again, I mean, I hope Disney doesn't find this and gets mad at me, but I was hired so quickly that I never signed an NDA. So in theory, I could talk about it all, but obviously I won't. Um, but it's just interesting sort of how I found the job. I mean, first of all, for listeners, and to be honest, I didn't know much about the graphic novel until I was brought onto the project. So it's based off this graphic novel by, it's a Cantonese name, so I might not be saying it right, by Jean Lin Young. And he basically, the American born Chinese, the graphic novel is about this um Chinese American kid who's in his first years of high school, I believe. He's going through puberty. He has a crush on a white girl, and somehow his story is tied to the Monkey King from Journey to the West, which is a classical Chinese story. And it's kind of wonky. It's silly, wonky, but
I
endearing
love
all at
it
the same.
already.
Yeah, and then
I
basically
mean,
the monkey. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, I mean, I was just gonna say, yeah, I can totally relate because I've had crushes on white girls too.
And the Monkey King was your mentor as well, like people from gods from Korean mythology were your mentor. So yeah, it kind of combines that, and then the TV show is obviously going on a slightly different route, but of course it has two different timelines. There's like the middle school, high school route storyline where it's just these two Chinese American kids kind of figuring their way out in American society and in American school, but at home they're in a Chinese household. But while in Chinese heaven or Chinese mythology, the Monkey King is dealing with all these politics, and then there's going to be a bunch of fighting and battle of the gods while this Chinese American boy falls in love with a white girl, and that's generally the storyline. It's silly, it's wonky, and I'm really excited to see how it unfolds. So how I got involved in that is that I remember it so vividly. It was like April 4th. It was like maybe 4 a.m. I was having one of those existential crises while working on one of my projects, saying that, man, film's rough, production's rough. Maybe it's time to call it quits and work an office, because I've worked office jobs before, so I know what that lifestyle is like, and I envy it sometimes because it's very consistent. You're much more comfortable than working as a filmmaker or as an artist. And then on Facebook, in the Asian Creative Network, I saw this post from someone saying that they need a Chinese speaking script supervisor for a Disney show. And it was like posted at maybe midnight EDT. So obviously, they posted a little bit early California time. So at first I thought this looks really scammy. I don't think Disney would hire through Facebook. And the funnier thing was that the post said, if you have anyone to recommend, DM me. So I messaged two of my friends. I said, hey, message this random girl and tell them that, one, I speak Chinese, and that I'm good. I have a set experience. And so obviously I messaged her. And maybe about 8 hours later, when I woke up, I was hired. It was crazy. I got the message saying that I was hired. And then I didn't even know what the show was, because they just said they needed a script supervisor for a Disney show that where the script is mostly in Mandarin.
Hold up,
And
hold up, hold up.
then
Oh, please hold on to that. So did the person who put out the post, the listing, did they know your friend or your acquaintance?
No,
No, so
no, we
you're
have
all
no mutual common.
strangers. You're all just strangers. But
Yeah,
you submitted like a CV or something.
not even
Um,
like I just messaged her, which was it's so bizarre. It's like one of the most
you're hired.
unofficial.
Hey,
Yeah,
you
one
look
of the
Chinese
most.
enough.
It was one of the most unofficial hiring processes for something that's so official. And I saw in the comments like so many people were applying because who doesn't want to be a part of a big Disney production? And to be quite frank, because I saw a lot of people I know, I was like, I don't think that person speaks much Mandarin, but I don't, I get it because it looks like a really cool opportunity. And quite frankly, at first it looked kind of scammy, so I didn't even know it was legit. But I messaged this woman, and so obviously, so I had two recommendations that I kind of pushed out there. Plus, I messaged this woman saying that, hey, I've been working in film for a while. I've worked the script supervisor role before, and I've worked as a translator on set. And then
Perfect.
I woke, and then I went to sleep, very anxious. And then when I woke up, she was like, "Hey, our producer wants to talk to you." This is crazy. And then I get an email from Erin or Mallory, who she's worked on a lot of shows. I think she was involved in Fresh Off the Boat and other things, and it was really intimidating, but at the same time, just also really just an honor and privilege as well. I know I'm going to overuse those words, honor and privilege, all the
Oh,
time.
well, very honorable. Oh,
Yes, bring honest honor to us all. And then I was just hired, and then I got the script, and I got the call sheet before I signed. Before we even discussed a rate, I had the information, and I had my Disney entrance badge because they're filming at Fox Studio a lot in LA. So basically, once I got it, I immediately like booked a flight to LA because I was hired on the 4th and we're filming on the 6th. It was just so it just happened so fast,
whoa,
and then
dude, that's
and then and
crazy.
then and then I'm working on, it's probably the biggest crew production job I've ever had because I'm part of the leadership. Because I'm sitting behind the camera with the director, the producers, the writers, and Daniel Cretton, I believe is his full name. If you've seen Shang-Chi, he was the director of Shang-Chi, also the director of
Ah,
Just Mercy. I mean, like sitting next to him, he's one of the executive producers for American Born Chinese. So I got to sit next to him. I got to talk to him. They asked me for feedback, and it was like one of the most high stakes commentary I have ever had to make because my job was to basically look at the screen, look at the monitor to make sure that the actors were saying their lines correctly in Mandarin. That's primarily my job.
oh,
And maybe to help them correct their lines or help them practice that sort of thing. And again, it's still a little bit of cloud nine because I basically got to meet half of Asian Hollywood in like 8 days of working, about 2 weeks. And it's I can't believe I'm saying this, but I got to coach James Hong. You probably know him if you don't know the name. If you've seen Kung Fu Panda, Mr. Ping is James Hong.
uh-huh.
And
Okay,
if you've
I have a
seen
big
the animated
recollection.
Mulan, Chi Fu, the advisor wearing blue who doesn't like Mulan,
Mm.
that's the name. That's James Hong, one of the most
Oh,
prolific actors in Hollywood. 93 years old and still acting. And I got to
oh,
work with him and coach him on his Mandarin line. That's like the greatest honor. No pun intended, because he
oh,
was a
very
character
honor.
in Mulan.
Oh,
But I got to work with him, and I got to go to his trailer, and like I had to prepare big cue cards for him because he's more of a Cantonese speaker than a Mandarin speaker. He's also in Everything Everywhere All at Once, the new Michelle Yeoh movie. And speaking of Michelle Yeoh, I got to meet Michelle Yeoh. It's just bizarre. And not just like meet, I got to talk to her about her movie and shake her hand and like be on set with her. And I had to kind of give her notes and also overlook her performance because that was my job. I had to make sure that all the Chinese dialogue was spoken correctly.
wow,
And
dude.
it's like I said, that's just
How
cloud
long?
nine. No, yeah.
When did you fly to Disney? Like, when was this? Oh, sorry. When did you fly to LA to
That
start
was
working?
April 6th. And then
Dude,
yeah,
this month. Like this month.
yeah, yeah.
Dude, your life is
Before.
changing right. This is fucking incredible. You're like, I'm getting chills just thinking about everything you said. Like, you applied, and then 2 days later, you have to be there, and you meet all the half of Asian Hollywood. Dude, that's fucking insane.
Oh,
Dude,
Ronnie Chang was on set, Jinny O Yang.
wow.
I want to see. I want to see. I had them sign one of my cue cards. I'm seeing if I can pull it up. Um, I'll get it. I'll get it for you. I'll get it here. It's right here. But like I said, it's just yeah. I don't know if you show anything to audiences visually, but like that's
Oh,
Michelle
I do.
Yeoh's signature. Yeah,
Yeah, this is.
and
I mean,
then
this people will see this on
Jimmy O
YouTube. Yeah,
Yang.
for the
Yeah,
listeners, blue. There's a big blue card, and there's all these famous Asian American like actors and comedians signing this stuff. So this is amazing. Wow.
yeah. And Daniel Wu, who's I would say he's bigger in Asia than he is in the US, but he's from AMC Into the Badlands. I got to work with him. It's just it's so wild. And again, it's just I'm hoping to extend my contract because not every episode has Mandarin parts in it, so I'm not needed for every part, but hopefully I'll be able to shadow them. I've talked to some of the directors and producers. I'm waiting for basically the approval to continue shadowing them as they work because I just think it's an incredible experience. And again, to use those cliches, as a Chinese American artist, as an Asian American artist, it is sort of every once in a blue moon that there's a kind of majority Asian production in the United States. They're more and more than before, but they're still not very common. So I just think to be a part of this it's really euphoric, and I don't want to give that up. I mean, even if I have nothing particularly to do, it's just if I can somehow be useful to them and just to watch them in their workspace, oh gosh, it's the best film school ever.
That is absolutely amazing. And I'm so happy for you, bro. Like that is so cool. And the thing is like even if they don't hire you or whatever, like you have that under your belt forever, right? And then you have obviously amazing connections. And the thing is like people who are likable, reliable, and good at what they do will always be in high demand, right? They're always, and people like to work with people they enjoy spending time with, right? So if you can as long as you keep putting yourself out there, putting out the consistent work, because I know you have Team Avatar Films, you're always producing, you always have ideas, I'm sure always networking, connecting with friends, and like doing cool shit. Like that's awesome, man. I'm so happy for you. That's amazing.
Thanks, dude. Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Wow. So how long is the production going for?
They're shooting until June, and then technically I was only supposed to be hired for one episode. We finished that episode mostly. We had to do some pickups because one of the actors wasn't feeling well. So yeah, sort of my contract is still kind of up in the air, so to speak. Like again, like I'd love to work for them as long as they need me. Or I'd love to shadow them if they're okay with it, and then we're just sort of figuring that out. But I've already worked for them for gosh, I feel like that little kid that kind of keeps track of everything, but I've already had 8 working days with them. And that's what I was originally hired for because it would take 8 days to film that particular episode. And now there's going to be more pickups, and then we'll see if they find me useful or likable enough to kind of continue hanging out with them. Because again, it's just because it's not just those well-known names. It's like the stunt team is the same stunt team that worked on Shang-Chi. I met the stunt double for Michelle, and like it's just like I said, it's literally Disneyland for an Asian American filmmaker.
Yeah, you're in it,
And
man.
it's just
Wild ride.
yeah, it's just crazy. Like when I got the call sheet and the script, and I was like, American born Chinese, and like I was seeing like Michelle Yeoh's name and Daniel Wu's name on the call sheets. I was like, this is crazy.
That is awesome.
Mhm.
Wow, I'm looking forward to see it.
Oh, for sure.
And-
I would love to encourage everyone to take a look at it. I mean, it's just I think it's going to combine a lot of wonky and cute elements, and there's going to be something for everyone. And it's a 6 episode mini. Sorry, correction, 8 episode series on Disney Plus, and it's going to be coming out in the fall. And
Whoa,
most of my input was done on episode 4, but hopefully we'll see if they're going to have me consult on the other episodes.
that's
And
awesome.
if you don't mind me asking, you've also interviewed other filmmakers, right? I assume you've met a lot of people that also do film and media.
Well, yeah, let's see. Chelsea is the only one that comes to mind right now.
Mm,
Let's see other people who are filmmakers. I mean, I interviewed Danny Cho, LA
mm,
Korean American comedian. Let me
mm.
see. So he's in entertainment. Let me think. Um,
The name's very familiar.
I've interviewed a bunch of different people. So like,
Mm.
forgive me, mime timers, if I can't think of another
You're good. You're
person
good.
in entertainment. But like I mean, I work in entertainment in a way. Like I do like model
Yeah.
casting stuff, and you know, I've been on different sets here in Korea for different stuff. Like we've supplied, my partner and I, we supplied like extras and models for like a commercial film for Samsung a while back.
Mm.
You know, they needed a model, so we provided it to them. And then what else? Like for our Netflix series, a very popular kind of K-pop series on Netflix. Oh yeah, my name is actually in the credit with my partner for Drama World season 2. Like we helped with, like, as casting directors, we helped provide like you know, other like international foreign extras to appear in sets, right, at different
Mm.
points in the show. And so yeah, I that stuff is cool. You know, working in entertainment, you know, working in media is fun.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, in doing this podcast, there's all kinds of doors for you know, for commercial films or for media and shoots of all kinds. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. If you're ever in Korea, man, like I'll introduce you to my network. It's like the best people. They're always up to cool shit. Yeah.
Mm. But for sure, I'll have to let you know. I mean, I've been to Seoul once. I've been to the I forget the official name of it, but like the National War Museum that it has a turtle ship. I think is one of their big
Yes, that's the
exhibits.
yeah, that's the place that I mentioned.
Yeah, no, that's Admiral Lee Sun-shin.
Yes,
What
yeah,
an
you got
OG. What an
yeah.
OG.
What an OG, right? So there should be more movies about him.
Saw that one movie. I don't remember the Korean name. I think it's called like Turning Tides or something. I saw that movie. So if you know what I'm talking about, I think it was released in like 2016 or 2015.
Hmm. I'm not
I know there's
familiar,
at
so
least
I gotta look
I
that
know
up.
there's at least one movie about him. But yeah, no, he's a like I said, the turtle ship. What an OG invention. Fighting Japanese imperialism before it was cool.
Yeah, before it was cool. With the first ironclad warship, you know, no less. Yeah. So I think we're kind of running out of time here. This has been great. I want to ask, like, aside from American Born Chinese, like, what other projects are you working on or you're looking to that you would like to promote on the show? Like, what are
Yes.
you excited about?
So I have my own indie studio called Team Avatar Films. So it's Team Avatar Films on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And we the genesis of it is that it started during the pandemic. So a lot of the motivation, honestly, was just boredom. There was nothing to do in almost any industry. I was jobless at the time. So I basically put out casting notices on Facebook saying that, hey, I'm an indie filmmaker. I have some experience and I'd love to do a live action film based on the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And up to this day, we've released 5 short films and we have 3 longer films planned for release. And and I would say that we're aiming for a summer release schedule. And then that in itself is also sort of a wild adventure because it's just working with all kinds of different personalities and people, and a lot of problem solving, and obviously the limitations. It's literally different worlds, even though it's in that umbrella of entertainment. It's just, it's one thing to work on a Disney show, and not that more money means that everything is better. But quite frankly, I think bigger productions is like they have that comfort. Like if something's going wrong, they can kind of solve it with money. In an indie production, not at all, because it's just we don't have millions of dollars at our disposal, and
You got to be
it's
creative.
essentially, yeah, it's learning to use limited resources to one create the best product possible. Because even though we're an indie studio, I try to have really high standards for my post production team and my other producers. I Our goal is to essentially not have indie vibes when people watch our film. So I have a very talented composer from the Netherlands whose music is just out of this world, and there's samples on our Instagram. And then I work with at this moment 4 professional sound designers, and then we're trying to pay attention to every detail. It's just we don't want this to just look good. We also want it to sound good, and again, like working with those limitations, we want to make the best film possible. So it's not just out of a desire to make nerdy Avatar live action covers, but I wanted to ultimately create opportunities for other artists, not mostly Asian artists, but we did work with some non-Asians as well, both in terms of actors and crew, because ultimately, and this is actually the advice of a lot of people at the top even. They say that ultimately it's best to create your own opportunities. And one, it's like you learn a lot just by creating your own stuff. And you, even if you make a lot of mistakes, even if the film ultimately isn't that good, you will learn a lot. And then ultimately I also use this for my resume. I mean, when I applied to even the ABC job, American Born Chinese, and other crew jobs, I put this on my resume that I know how to produce a film and that I know what goes into filmmaking. And Team Avatar Films has taught me so much about the nuances of making a good product, and then also how to deal with. I probably worked with, I've lost count, maybe 80, 90, 100 personalities at this point. Everyone from like like a background actor to other producers to distributors, CGI artists, sound artists, Erhu soloists, Erhu is the Chinese violin, essentially what is Chinese violin, and musicians. So it's just wild bringing that team together. And I'll be honest, it's as much as I find producing to be very rewarding and interesting, it's very exhausting work. So I don't know if I want to like do this forever, or I think the next time I do it, I want to make sure that I have a better base for it, because it's just a lot managing that many people for and we're planning on releasing 80 more minutes of footage. And it's crazy because like for each minute of footage you have to edit a lot, you have to color grade, you have to sound design, you have to compose music for it, and then for the shots that need VFX and CGI for it, you have to be very meticulous with it. So Team Avatar Films, it's my, of course, it's sort of my, it's you know, it's my brain. What's the term? I forget, but it's like it's my brainchild. But of course, it's a brainchild that I get frustrated with. But at the same time, I want to use it as a platform to not just elevate myself, but elevate everyone that works with us. And in the end, and hopefully, I can I could I may have shared something with you, but we've already released some announcement trailers that have gotten, you know, a couple tens of thousands of views and stuff like that. So I like to think that we have an impact to make, and that even if you don't know or enjoy the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender, I like to think that our stories are different and original enough that they're pretty universal and pretty accessible to anyone that would be willing to give it a watch.
Well, it sounds like you're making everybody's dreams come true. And yourself and
Trying to.
the people you work with,
Mhm.
and then the audience is just like, oh yeah, like Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's such a cool cartoon. It's such a amazing universe. Like, what if they made a live action version of it? And
On
so,
Netflix, oh boy.
oh yeah, man. Who knows, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you talk to the right people, secure the rights, or whatever, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, even if it it doesn't turn into something like that, that experience under your belt is key. So I mean,
Mhm.
for other aspiring creatives or like filmmakers out there, just start somewhere, right? Maybe the
Mhm.
goal for you, or maybe you want to get into Hollywood or some kind of bigger production house or something like that. But even if you just have something of your own, um, then at the end of the day, what people value, people who really know their shit, people who really get shit done, what they really value is people with experience, people who have done the work, right? People who have had,
Mhm.
you have to negotiate with the cast and deal with different personalities and drama and work environment, and be resourceful when you have no resources. That's what being resourceful means, right? Like all
Mhm.
those skills, translation, script writing, editing, right? Like you put in the work, like you do the boring work, and you put the time in, and then you have that real world experience. Like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this forever, but the fact that you have that experience at all is priceless. And the
Mhm.
thing is, like, anybody can do that. Anybody can build something, and even if it's not like great, or you're not, it's not like the most amazing thing. The fact that you have that from that experience, you can build upon the experience and your skills and your network even more, until it just comes to a point where it's just like, okay, your skills and your experience have stacked up, that you hit the right target for the requirements to fulfill some sort of other role in service to another entity, another individual or a group. So I would like to, my takeaway from what all the awesome stuff you said, Team Avatar Films, the stuff that your experience is king. More and more I realize is like, I don't care if you went to Harvard for law school or Berkeley or whatever, like, do you have the experience? Like, I think experience is really, really key. And so, like, that's why I try to do this in my podcast. It's like, oh, I wish I had more resources. I wish I could do like, I want to be like the Korean American Joe Rogan, like, and
Mhm.
my problem is I want to do everything. Like, I want to do martial arts and stand-up comedy. I did a couple sets this past weekend. It was fun, and I want to go back to the music open mics and play guitar and sing again. So like I got to be careful because I shouldn't spread my energy too thin. But like Joe Rogan's, he's a famous MMA artist, MMA fighter and commentator, and he's also a famous comedian. And so he has like that network with famous comedians and famous mixed martial artists, and he knows his craft and all these different people. Like he's a master in of several trades, so like I kind of want to do that in my own stuff. And so like I have that self-doubt, right? Some people might look at this like, oh, mime time, like you're doing it, like people like, oh, I wish I had that, but it's like, I'm just a bum. Like anyone can do this. Anyone can just take the time to sit there, but it just takes time, and countless obstacles and countless steps and little boring tasks. Experience is king. Do the boring work and build something for yourself. If you want to be part of something great, you can also, in order to prepare, I don't know what you said earlier, but exactly what was it again? It's like build in preparation for something, build something for yourself. You said you got this advice a lot. What was it you said again? You said it so well.
Oh, I'm trying to remember what it was exactly.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's basically, even the people at the top, they said like ultimately you have to create opportunities for yourself.
Yes, create opportunities for yourself. Yes, that's exactly it. Very well encapsulated. Okay, well, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Oh no, just thank you so much for this conversation, and that I enjoyed this a ton, and I'm so glad that we got to talk about so many, I would say, compelling, important, relevant topics. And like I said, I can't thank you enough, and I hope we can collaborate again, and I hope that your viewers get something out of this. And yeah, just let me know if you need anything, and thanks for letting me talk about the importance of the Korean War, my start as an Asian American filmmaker, and Team Avatar Films, which again, it's growing, it's budding. I'm excited for it, despite a lot of the challenges, because this has been Team Avatar Films was like basically the center of my career for a while. Of course, like I still did side projects whenever I got like American Born Chinese or Devotion in Georgia, but Team Avatar Films has sort of defined my career for almost the past 2 years.
That's awesome. Well, Victor, thank you so much for your time, brother. I really, really enjoyed this conversation, and
likewise.
This is so cool. It's cool to hear your story and the things you're doing, and I'm really, really excited for you in the future. So, really, really appreciate it, and I hope we collaborate in some way or another in the future. And everyone, please tune into Team Avatar Films. Right, like check them out on this. I'll put the socials in the show notes and the links and all that. And also American Born Chinese coming out Disney Plus. Wow, fall 2022. I just wanted to say that,
I appreciate it. Appreciate it,
everyone, thank you for listening and tuning in today. And remember, create opportunities for yourselves. Don't take things too personally. We are privileged, and so we can be humble, have humility, and be grateful, and be proud. And like the world is our Chinese Oriental oyster. Yes. So that's the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in, Mime Timers, and we will see you next time. Mime time. Peace.